Hello everyone, here's the most overpowered build for Harlowe in Borderlands 4. Now with this build, this is an Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. And what's crazy is you can shred bosses. So you can see that boss isn't taking a whole lot of damage, and then immediately its health bar is deleted. This is utilizing a couple skills on our skill tree here, which we'll be breaking down in this video and all the best strategies utilized with Harlowe. Now, this is partially due to this ability here, the Neutron capture, which adds 4% of your action skill damage dealt to our shots. This has an interesting mechanic where if we utilize the Katagawa's Revenge here, this isn't even the best version of the weapon. You can get one that can ricochet to enemies. If you use the shock one, it's going to deal a ton of that damage over time with this weapon. So this is one of the best strategies here, and this is the boss that you can farm it off of, but this is super powerful. Paired with all the abilities that we get to radiation damage. So we're going to be doing quite a bit in this video, so I'll be breaking this all down from level 0 to 50. Now, from level 0, we want the CHROMa Accelerator. This is actually really powerful, so this passes through dealing cryo damage to enemies that pass through, and you can press F again to explode it, dealing radiation damage. The damage from this is large, and it can be further enhanced by a lot of our abilities, which most notably, we want to get that damage number up as high as possible. With the Field Ready prototype, this is just going to give us a plus 30% action damage. The reason we want this is because of our first augment here. This all pairs together. This build comes online really early. The Neutron capture here, so all damage Harlowe's unstable energy pocket deals to enemies is stored. Whenever it explodes, a portion of the storage damage is transferred to Harlowe's gun. This is really great on fast fire rate guns as well as any type of weapon that can deal damage over time, like I showed off at the start of this video. So with this will do 4% of the action skill damage dealt. What's interesting is before this game released, it was actually supposed to be 10% of the action skill damage dealt, which would have been way too overpowered. Even still, 4% is overpowered. I expect this to potentially get a nerf someday. Now, after this, we're actually going to want to continue down here. So Harlowe gains increased elemental damage, and our radiation damage is elemental damage, and status effect damage. So big boost to our overall damage here. We want that. Now, here is another really nice one. So boost to our radiation damage, 21%. Take all 3 points in this. And then we got a couple options. So I actually have this from my skill tree. The Elephant's Foot is not bad. So whenever Harlowe shields break, she deals radiation damage to all entangled enemies. Harlowe gains overshield equal to the amount of damage dealt this way. This can actually be really good. I'd recommend grabbing it. I got it from my class mod, so I don't have to worry about that, but it can increase the damage weight if you want to. I don't recommend that. We want to boost up our damage, so out of all the skill tree choices here, I say the best one is the fire rate. There's also this one here, which will increase skill cooldown rate whenever we apply a status, but I think the plus 8% fire rate is just better for the boost to the damage that we'll get. Now, we want to make our way down here to the Demon Core, which is really crazy because it boosts up our radiation damage quite a bit. There's a couple skill tree here that we want to focus on, though. This one gives you increased skill damage. I wouldn't recommend grabbing it until a little later. This here will increase our radiation damage again and a radiation chance. We obviously want that because that 30% radiation damage and 60% chance is extremely valuable. We can grab this here. I don't fully recommend it. It's not as good as the Neutron capture is. And then after this, I have 2 of these here from the skill tree. So whenever Harlowe damages an irradiated enemy, an entangled enemy, you shoot a radiation dart at another enemy, which has a cooldown of 2 seconds, but it's actually pretty decent damage. I would actually prefer to go with the chain reactor here, dealing bonus radiation damage to entangled targets, which we're going to entangle targets often. You can entangle them by using your action skill on those enemies, and then they take bonus radiation damage, which you're going to deal with this anyways. It gets pretty crazy how much damage we can do. Now, we want to get down here further on the skill tree, so you could go with either putting the 2 points into this. I at least recommend having at least 1 point here. The boost of the damage from that dart isn't too high, even though it happens every 2 seconds. This one here can give you increased critical hit chance against radiated enemies, which is also quite nice, because boosting your critical hit rate is actually pretty effective. You can take those points and put them into the fissile launcher there, but this gives us our Demon Core. Now, this is extremely powerful on this build in particular. So whenever we shoot our unstable pocket, our ultimate action skill there, radiation darts will fly out, and whenever we entangle enemies while our action skill is active, automatically irradiate that enemy. So this will deal 4,461 damage, actually pretty good amount of damage there. And then we also want to grab the Dirty Bomb. So whenever we irradiate an enemy, create a radiation explosion on an enemy, doing 40% of the radiation damage. That's pretty good. There's also this one here. Whenever you kill an irradiated enemy or kill an enemy with a radiation damage, leaves behind a hazard. The damage from this isn't really that great overall, and it lasts for 5 seconds. You could grab it if you want to. It's entirely your choice. You don't need it for this build, but it can be kind of fun. Now, for our next option here, I do like to increase overall skill damage. We can go into the green skill tree, though, because there is actually some pretty useful options here. The reason I like this is here you get a status effect chance to apply to... You get a 50% chance of applying your status effects to entangled enemies. It's great. This one here, whenever you irradiate an enemy, which we're doing often, you get increased gun damage, so you can increase your gun damage by 10%. and then you get 50% boost to your overall damage. This is a huge boost. And then there's the Resonant Cascade. Whenever Harlowe deals radiation damage to an enemy, she gains increased action skill damage. So again, we want to increase our action skill damage because that's going to boost up the damage that we get back onto our gun. So personally, I like to go with the 5 points here, getting your 50% chance to spread your radiation. And then whenever we spread, or whenever you irradiate an enemy, we get plus 10% damage for 12 seconds, 5 stacks, so plus 50% damage. And then we can go ahead here with whenever we deal radiation damage to an enemy, we get action skilled, so 9% per stack here, duration 8 seconds, and max X5. So yeah, you can get a good boost to our overall action skill damage from this. Now I have an action skill here. We need 2 more points to be able to unlock this. So I like to keep a couple points here if you got this. I like this one here. Whenever Harlowe shoots an entangled enemy, she and all allies restore a portion of their action skill cooldown. So yeah, you can actually get a big boost to your action skill cooldown back just from using this one here. And this one gives you boost damage whenever you have overshield. But I actually think taking 2 points of this will 1% action cooldown per shot on an entangled enemy. And you can actually get some weapons that shoot really quickly on entangled enemies, which will then give you your action skill back. This becomes pretty crazy fast. This also unlocks this whenever you deal damage with increased damage to all sources of entangled enemies inside of our flux generator will take further increased damage. Again, just any boost to our action skill is extremely powerful, and that one actually gives us quite a nice boost. And then we can go back. We have 7 points left. I'd recommend taking this for the plus 35% skill damage, which is great. And then you can also, I wouldn't recommend converting the damage to cryo damage. It's going to be better to have a bit of radiation there because I think that works better on our build. And this one gains lifesteal against frozen enemies if she's at full health. Not really that great of a choice. So we can go ahead here and get the radiation darts or the increased critical hit chance against radiated enemies for our last 2 levels. Or we can go back to some of the previous options here, like increasing our fire rate. So it's up to you. I think increased fire rate just gives a boost to our damage, which is quite nice. That's what the skill tree ends up looking like there. And then what we're going to take advantage of is specializations. Now, these aren't fully needed, but they're nice to have. This is really just, it's going to take time to get your levels up here. So action skill damage increase, I am a gun. This is the best choice. You need this one as soon as you can possibly get it. What this does is it now gives you your gun damage boost onto your action skill. As mentioned, our action skill will also internally boost our gun damage. So this is just a it just gives us a big boost to our damage. A Honed Mind, this is great. Action skills get a chance to critically hit enemies and you get increased action skill critical hit damage. So again, this is pretty useful. Now with Caffeine, whenever we use a rep kit, we get 25% of our action skill duration reduction. So you can spam the triple bypass 3 times, get 75% of your action skill back. You basically get it back instantly at that point. And then to really do this, whenever you deal damage, you get upwards of 50% extra gun damage. Again, that's really good because those boosts also go to our action skill. And we get a big boost to overall damage from that. Now, getting into gear, I'll first start off, I guess, with the rep kit. This is going to give us the best boost to our overall damage. The triple bypass is great because you can use this one with the amp, which will increase your damage to the next shot by 200%, but it has 3 charges. You just want this one for those 3 charges because then you can get your action skill back really quickly. I don't need any introduction. The throwing knife, critical hit knife is one of the best in the game. You can go with like the waterfall grenades. Those are pretty useful too, or the relentless fuse, or really whatever grenade you prefer. This throwing knife, the vivisecting throwing knife is just so good. Now, we also got a few options. The Scientist is probably the best class mod. I wasn't able to find a good one here. I like this one, the Unshielded Reactor. So whenever we entangle an enemy, we gain a reactor stack. For each stack, we get plus 2% movement speed. And then once we get 10 stacks, so 20% movement speed, we also get plus 20% gun damage, fire rate, reload speed, and status effect damage for 12 seconds. That's pretty good. Big boost to overall effectiveness. This also gives boosted reload speed and effect chance. Use the best available class mod you can get. The Scientist will be the best one with some that are in the red skill tree. Now for the shield, the Fireworks is always going to be a good one because this just deals damage over time to multiple enemies. Timekeeper's new shield can make you pretty tanky, but without a shield. And I also like to go with the, if you can get an onion shield, that's pretty good. Or the Watts for Dinner, which is an overshield based shield. Although this build isn't really revolving around that. We'll probably do one in the future about that. Now we also got enhancements. This one's pretty good. So guns with the Jacob license part have a 20% chance to grant a critical hit and increases ricochets by 1. Pistol accuracy is increased. That's not a huge deal. You want to get the Deadeye though to boost up your critical hit chance. High caliber is actually probably the best because on Katagawa's Revenge, the sniper rifle, if you can pierce the enemy, this actually boosts the damage a ton. So I guess getting into weapons, her absolute best weapon is Katagawa's Revenge. The reason being is that Neutron capture, adding the radiation damage that we dealt with our action skill, applies to this gun a freakishly large amount of times. That's because it has these here, which will continuously shock the enemy, and you get them every time you shoot the gun. So you get a bunch of those going, it adds the action skill damage onto it. It becomes pretty crazy. It probably will get nerfed at some point. The fire ones aren't as good. They do a little, they just drop down and explode. It's better to go with these shock ones just because these are going to be able to apply our action skill damage so quick. It's insane how much damage you can output with this. Now, I also like to have some form of assault rifle, and Lucian's flank's my favorite because every critical hit will restore 2 ammunition to your barrel, and it'll also chain to multiple enemies. That's just great. The Hot Slugger is also great because it gives you a plus 90% damage. This is one of the best guns in the game. It'll also ricochet. Don't need any introduction. This gun's just really good. I also personally like to have the superconducting plasma coil, one of my favorite weapons from Borderlands 3, now available in Borderlands 4. Why I like it so much? It shoots shock, which is very common in this game, but it also has the radiation burst. It shoots a 6-round burst like that, and it has a really fast reload. There's a lot to love with this, but having a really good radiation gun like this for close range is nice, and then you also have the shock if you need it. This works great with all of our skill tree. Now, just to show how this build works, on Ultimate Vault Hunter 5, everything's got a lot of health. You can see there, the cycles are taking multiple shots to be able to take down, and my health is degrading really quickly. We're doing absolutely nothing to this boss. That's why Katagawa's Revenge is so good. So you use your action skill here, so we go ahead, blast it, and then whenever you explode it there, then our damage is added to the gun. And you can see there, it just spreads down the boss's health because all of those is applying our action skill, and you get 3 of them there. Now, I'm not sure if that was an intended effect because it's quite high damage, but my headcanon is it makes sense because her lore is that she worked for Maliwan, and this is a Maliwan gun. So I think that that makes sense. And she also this gun also talks about a job. So my headcanon is she made this gun specifically for herself. And also to showcase the Lucian's flank, you can see there, we're hitting many headshots. It's not doing nothing to his health bar. So yeah, this is just showing how high the damage scaling is in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, because you can barely do anything with these guns. That's why, again, I'm just going to showcase it again. This is super useful, so using your action skill, I like the critical hit knife because our action skill can crit. It does a good amount of damage there. His health is at half, but it's just, one of these will deal tons of damage. I don't even need to use it multiple times. One shot from that gun, and the extra radiation damage is insane. And you see there, when it wears off, you have to actually use this action skill multiple times, so the combination makes a whole lot of sense. Again, I think this is meant to be an intended mechanic. This is also the boss that you get Katagawa's Revenge from, so I'd recommend farming this because it's one of the easiest farms in the game. So it's just a side note because you can just quickly jump back and go back to the room to refresh the boss. But that is the most overpowered Harlowe build in Borderlands 4. Just crazy amounts of damage combining our Neutron capture, the demon core, and then throwing that onto the gun that she made herself, Katagawa's Revenge. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already. I hope you have a great day. We'll catch you in the next one.